Thanks. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining me today. Uh, like Rachel said, my name is Grace Townsend. I'm a team member here at Impact LED Signs. We're a wholesale manufacturer of affordable, quality electronic message center signs. We've got signs in every state across the US, and we're exclusively wholesale through our dealer partners. We'll never sell direct to an end user, and our mission is to provide our dealer partners a quality display at an affordable price and back them with an amazing lifetime of support. Today, I'm going to talk about how you can build a case for the return on investment for a customer considering an electronic message center sign. We've got some tools that you might find helpful, and I'm going to share with you how you can find them and how you can use them to help your end users justify the investment and see a return on their investment on an electronic message center sign. This is the presentation I gave as a tools or tricks of the trade presentation at our last Mid-South gathering. I called it SBA EMC ROIC. I focused more on the calculation. Today, I'll be focusing more on the conversation that we'll be having with an end user. So I can't see everyone, but I'm assuming a fair amount of you online are familiar with what an EMC is. An EMC stands for Electronic Message Center Sign. When it comes to Impact LED, they're full color. You can use them for videos, images, GIFs, text, custom content. There's a ton you can do with them. But because they're a high piece of electronics and a great tool, they also do come with a higher price tag. For those of you that sell electronic message center signs, the number one reason why people don't go with them often is because of sticker shock. People get scared by a high price and they think, just like any other sign, it's just a sign. But for those of us in signage, we know that signs are an investment in the business and often see a return on that investment by increased visibility to the community and increased customers. So I'm going to focus on a study done by the Small Business Administration that talks about electronic message centers and how they help small businesses. The study itself focuses on how EMCs are used, why your business might need or want one, how will it work best for your business, is it a cost-effective advertising medium, what level of return on investment can you expect, and how much can they expect to spend on an EMC, as well as what about the safety for drivers who are looking at this sign? So these are some great questions that are answered in the study, and I recommend that both you and your end user become familiar with it. It's a great read. It's not too long. You can actually find it, since we're all online, you guys are welcome to follow along, on our website, impactledsigns.com. This is our website. This is our homepage. If you navigate over to the Learn More dropdown, we have the Electronic Message Center ROI Calculator right here. This is the tool. This is the page it'll bring you to. I recommend when you're having this conversation with your end user, the end user is the one going to purchase the sign, use it for their business. You being a dealer partner, the person who would purchase it from Impact LED and sell it to your end user, I highly recommend going through this with them for two reasons. First and foremost, they're more likely to trust information and data that they calculated themselves. These calculations are just that. They're math equations, and they'll be the same. If you put in the same inputs, you'll get the same results. But an end user is more likely to trust those numbers if they put it in themselves. So whether you're in person at their place of business, or they come visit your shop, or you're on a Zoom call like we are now, or on a Google Meet, I recommend walking through it with them because they're more likely to trust those numbers when they do it themselves. And then secondly, most large decisions like this are done with someone else. By walking through this with them, they're able to recreate the process with their spouse, with their business partner, with an employee that handles some of these decisions, or with a manager. So being able to replicate this process without you involved is great so they can have that conversation with another decision maker. The academic study is right here, the Small Business Administration's Electronic Message Center Study. If you click it, it opens into another tab. Again, it's a great read. It has a bunch of information on here. It talks about electronic message centers and the studies we've done on them. But The main focus for today is going to be summarized on this front page. What level of return on investment can I expect? Based on this study, businesses that choose to enhance their signage with an electronic message-centered display typically see an increase in business of 15 to 150%. Using the smaller number, if we were to calculate it with a business generating $1,000 a day in revenue, by an increase in 15%, that's an additional $150 a day, or $1,050 a week, or $54,600 a year. If their initial investment was for a $50,000 sign, which is a nice sign, that sign will not only pay itself off within the first year of operation at the 15% return on investment mark of increase in business, but it lives for up to 10 to 20 years beyond that. And that's increase in profit and revenue for the business. If we jump back to the main tab, we've actually built in these calculators on our website. If you were to just do the calculation yourself, here's the math. You're welcome to do it yourself. But I found that it's a lot easier with our built-in calculator on our website. That can be found in these 3 different categories. So we're going to do the ROI analysis SBA. It'll take you to this page, which is a simple calculation. You'll just put in your name or the name of the project. And then to do our calculations today, I pulled some data offline to find just some average numbers. So we're going to work with, this is the same one that I did at the Tools of the Trade presentation, this fantasy convenience store. A convenience store that's doing about 500 transactions a day, with the average sale amount being $7.50, the average profit margin being about 30%. The business is open every day of the month, and their initial investment is $50,000. That $50,000 covers not only the wholesale cost of the EMC, the dealer's markup, the installation cost, the permitting, everything with the initial purchase of the EMC. $50,000 is a pretty nice sign. So if we jump back over here, average number of sales per day, 500. Average sale amount, $7.50. Average gross margin, 30%. Business is open 30 days a month. The sign investment, $50,000. If we calculate, this is what it shows up for us, and I've actually compiled it here to make it easier to see. It returns you 3 different results. The 15% result, the 150% result, and then the middle of the road, 82.5%. The percentage that they see returned back to them is a function of a couple different factors. It's a function of the market that they're in and how they use their sign. If they're in an untapped market, a growing market, they're more likely to see higher return on their investment just because they're now reaching out to a larger community and they're going to see more eyes drawn to that sign. As well as if they use the EMC to its fullest potential, they're more likely to see a higher return on their investment. That's some dynamic graphics, some community outreach information, celebrating of local sports teams, focusing on specific business incentives or specials for the business. They can do that using our drag and drop graphics library with thousands of graphics we provide, the easy to create tools to create their own custom playlists by uploading videos, images, text. They could use an entirely separate graphics builder and upload it straight into our software. They can schedule playlists to come out on specific holidays. There's so much they can do to get the most use out of their sign. And the more they use it to reach out to their community, the better and the higher return on investment they'll see. We handle 100% of the training for our end users in our software. So when that sign goes into production, we're already reaching out, trying to get them signed up and trained in the software. Live sessions with our technicians, videos online. That way, when that sign is shipped and installed, the first thing they see is the playlist they created. We want to inspire them to be excited about the content that they're going to put on the sign and get the most use out of their sign by regularly changing that content, by having some fun, dynamic, interesting things on there. So hopefully they see the higher return on investment. For this fantasy convenience store, at a 15% increase in business, before the purchase of the sign, they were seeing about $112,000 a month in revenue. With the addition of the sign, they're looking at about $129,000 in revenue. An addition of $16,875 a month, just on that low end 15% increase in business because of the investment in an EMC. Turn that out over a year, $202,000 in additional revenue in a year, or $60,000 in additional profit per year. Using this calculation with the initial investment of a $50,000 sign, which is a nice sign, that sign on the low end of increase in business pays itself off in 10 years or in 10 months. In less than a year, the sign makes itself back. Not only that, but the sign will live up to 20 years. After 10 years of having that sign, it will have generated an additional $607,000 for this business and still be running great. If we were to look at the middle range for an 82.5% increase in business due to an effectively used EMC, that's an additional revenue of over $1 million a year. Additional profit of $333,000 per year. The sign pays for itself in 2 months, and after 10 years, generates the business over $3 million in extra profit. If we were to go on the high end of the spectrum at 150% increase in business, that's an additional $2 million a year in revenue, an additional $600,000 a year in profit. And after 10 years, we'll have generated this fantasy corner store an additional $6 million in profit. Now, looking at these numbers, you can see that this is a great tool for engaging customers, and it helps them not only understand the financial benefits of purchasing a sign, particularly sooner rather than later, but it helps them understand that this investment is worth doing. This narrative shows them that they can't afford not to buy one, and that it's not just about buying a sign, but it's investing in the business. My goal is to empower you to empower your customers to make the best decision regarding their business investment. We understand there's some end users that don't operate like a corner store business, like a lot of schools or churches. So we've actually also created a church calculator, ROI analysis for churches. I pulled some data offline to see some average numbers for a church. This is excluding some mega churches. Churches before the purchase of an EMC typically see, or without any community outreach, typically see between 1 to 2% growth year over year. With an EMC or community outreach programs, they're likely to see growth between 10 to 20% per year. The average for churches that aren't mega churches have about a 200 person a week attendance rate, and the average giving is between $20 to $30. So in this case, we're going to go with a 15% growth, average giving per person, $25 a week. And let's say their initial EMC investment, this calculation here is for $45,000. Let's do it for 50, like that corner store. So in here, we're going to do the projected growth percentage at 15%. Average attendance, 200. Average giving, $25 a week. Their initial sign investment being $50,000. That's a nice sign for a smaller church. We hit calculate. The sign will pay for itself in 16 months. For a small church like this, that's huge. Their average giving per month before the purchase of the sign was $21,500 per month. After, $24,725 a month. That's an addition of $3,225 a month, or an additional $38,700 per year. And after 10 years, it will have brought in an additional $387,000 in giving to the church. Now, churches don't operate like a business. We're not going for a high number for the churches, but that number feeds back into their community outreach programs, their mission trips, being able to offer better services to different members of their community, more kids programs, those types of things. This is a return for the church. This is an investment that they're going to have, and this sign will continue to live for up to 20 years. So I hope these resources are helpful in showing how an EMC can generate return on investment, not only for regular businesses, but also for churches. But there's a couple important things to consider. EMCs live between 10 to 20 years. Some can live longer and some can live less. We've all heard of like a car crashing into a sign or a tree falling on it, and we've got a great warranty to cover that kind of stuff. As well as the ROI can be influenced by their EMC usage. Like I was talking about earlier, using the software to its fullest capacity, advertising specific elements of the business, specific community outreach programs, celebrating community initiatives, stuff that's happening to draw in their eye and recognize the business or customer in this case, that's more likely to drive up the interaction and have more people walk in the door. EMCs will likely require service in their lifetime. That's why it's important when you're shopping around for manufacturers to make sure that whoever you're buying from has a great warranty to back up their product, as well as plan for that when you're selling or installing a sign, that it will likely require service in their lifetime. All our signs come with a spare parts kit. So not only do you have the parts on hand, but that allows you to be able to go out and diagnose and service the sign in the same trip. That just makes life easy. You ship us the part that doesn't work if it was a part that happened to fail or anything, and then we refurbish that kit for you. As well as because we're in Kentucky, we're by the UPS hub, so we can overnight anything, try and make your life easy, minimize any downtime for a sign. But any EMC purchased from anywhere will likely require service in its lifetime. You know your customers far better than I do. I have a general sweeping scope of the US, but you know your community and you know your customer far better than I do. This is a resource. We've got plenty of resources on our website. You are welcome to use all of these when talking to your customers. There's no pricing online. We are strictly wholesale to the signage industry. So feel free to use any resource that you deem valuable to have these conversations with your customer and help educate them and empower them to make their own decisions regarding what will grow their business. And sign companies that I work with that use the ROI calculator tend to have higher closing rates. By sitting down and going through this conversation, you're not only educating them on the numbers themselves, but you're connecting with your customer and you're showing them that you care about them and their business and how this sign will work for them and the return on investment it will generate over years to come, and showing that you're in it for the long haul and being a part of that decision. So as you use these ROI tools, I hope it's helpful to you, and I'd love to hear how it works for you guys. Let me know how it goes. I'd love to receive feedback on how the tool works for you. If there's anything helpful you think we should add. My contact information, I just included it here. So feel free to call, text, email. I'd love to have a conversation. I'm more than willing to hop on a phone call. I'll answer every question to an end user besides price. So I am looking forward to being a resource for you guys and serving you in the future.
Thank you, Grace. We do have one question that was submitted. How do you cover yourself on a liability end by claiming a certain ROI? This attendee has always found it to be a slippery slope if an ROI is forecasted that doesn't pan out.
You know, that's fair. There's a ton that influence these ROI calculations. Like I said, a lot of it has to do with how they use the sign, but it also has to do with the type of market that they're in, the type of product that they offer. Like it's hard to find, particularly where I live, a gas station, or not a gas station, like a car wash that doesn't have an EMC. Well, those businesses have a very high return on their investment because they have low overhead. They don't have a lot of employees, but also nearly everyone in that community has a car, will need to wash that car at some point. Versus if you have a corner store or like a Hallmark store that's selling paper products, it's a very different business. And for a lot of churches, you'll see if they're in an area that is untapped, that that'll grow faster versus if you're in an area where everyone has a home church or has a family with a church, it's going to grow slower. So whenever I'm having these conversations, I talk about those factors, the community around them, and the way they use the sign. Because this, of course, is data and it's a range, and there's a couple things we can do to influence it, and then there's a couple things that we can't influence. So I try to be very clear in that explanation and say, hey, I can't promise the 150%, but just know that some people do see 150% depending on how they use the sign. So I don't promise anything, but I try to give them tools and resources to try and work towards that number, like our library of graphics. I've actually created a good amount in the library. So if you're in our graphics library and you're saying, hey, you're missing, like one a couple years ago was hunting season. We didn't have any hunting season graphics, so you can drag and drop. I threw them in there. So even if your customer is like a gas station and they're nowhere near the forest, there's some hunting season graphics, and then they can right after that say like a sale on beef jerky.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I think that was the only question that popped up. So I want to thank Grace. Thank you again for this presentation and piggybacking off of your tricks of the trade from earlier this year. And thank you to everyone who took the time to join us this morning. If there are any other follow-up questions, you have Grace's information, and this webinar has also been recorded that will be sent out to attendees today or tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and be on the lookout for more webinars, hopefully shortly. So thanks again, Grace.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for everyone who joined us.
Awesome. All right. Have a great day, everyone.
All right, bye.